Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. Today, I'm going to present a critical and analytical case study titled Language Acquisition in Malaysia, a case study of childhood bilingualism. We will explore the linguistic journey of a young bilingual learner navigating English acquisition in a multilingual society, with a focus on the challenges faced, theoretical insights, and practical implications. This presentation is not just about one child's journey. It's a lens into the broader issues faced by many learners in the similar multilingual context. Moving on, Malaysia is known for its rich linguistic diversity. Malay is the national language, while English functions as a second language and a key subject in schools. However, the country's multilingual nature brings both opportunities and challenges. In many schools, English is treated primarily as an academic subject rather than a functional language of communication. As a result, learners often encounter structural, emotional, and cognitive barriers to acquiring English fluency. This case study focuses on a Year 5 student, which is an 11-year-old child with Malay as her first language and English as her second language. She is a sequential bilingual, meaning English was introduced after a strong foundation in Malay. Her exposure to English is limited to classroom instruction, digital media like YouTube, and sporadic conversation at home. Although this exposure exists, the lack of interactive and purposeful use significantly limits her ability to communicate fluently in English. This study not only examines the linguistic difficulties she faces, but also offers an analytical framework to understand why these challenges occur and how we, as educators and stakeholders, can intervene ourselves. Let's proceed. Let's explore her profile and key linguistic challenges. As mentioned before, she is 11 years old and attends a government school. At home, Malay is used for all communication, while English is confined to school settings and occasional TV or YouTube content. The main challenges she faces includes the first one is language transfer. For instance, she might say, I already eat instead of I have already eaten. This is due to direct transfer of Malay grammar structures to English. Saya sudah makan. The next one, pronunciation errors. Common phonemes in English like th or h are either replaced or omitted. So tree becomes tree or hat becomes hat. The third one, low confidence and anxiety. She often avoids speaking in English due to fear of being judged, which reduces the chance of natural output and feedback. And the last one, code mixing and translanguaging. Her spoken sentences may sound like saya nak pergi kedai buy makanan, where English and Malay are fused naturally. She combined both of the languages in order to make sure that she conveyed an easiest way. What's more important to note here is that these challenges are not isolated. They are interconnected, and her anxiety inhibits output. Her limited practice leads to the grammatical stagnation and their educational context fails to scaffold her development. Moving on, this case study employed a qualitative approach using two main tools: semi-structured interviews with the student and classroom observations. The semi-structured interviews were designed to uncover how she feels about learning English, her perceived strengths and weakness, the kinds of support she receives at home and school. Classroom observations revealed patterns in her participations, her willingness to speak, and the types of error she commonly made during that work. Data was analyzed thematically. Emerging themes included fear of making mistakes, over-reliance on translation from Malay, and inconsistent scaffolding from teachers. Importantly, this approach aligns with the sociocultural and constructivist theories, which view language learning as a deeply tied to social interaction and individual context. It's not just about grammar rules, it's about the emotional, cultural, and environmental factors that shape how a language is acquired. Proceed. To frame our understanding of the learner's experience, I will briefly walk you through four major theories. The first one, questions input hypothesis. This learner receives comprehensible input, English lessons, videos, and so on, but much of it is passive. The affective filter, which refers to emotional blocks, is high due to her anxiety, reducing language intake. The second one, Swain's output hypothesis. She has limited opportunities for meaningful output. Without speaking or writing, she cannot test her language hypothesis or get feedback. Two crucial elements in internalizing correct structures. The third one, Long's interaction hypothesis. Real conversations allows the learner to negotiate meaning, request clarification, and self-correct. But in her case, English interactions are rare, so these opportunities are minimal. The fourth one, or the last one, Vygotsky zone of proximal development, ZPD. She has the potential to perform better in English, but needs consistent scaffolding. Unfortunately, support is sporadic. Teachers are exam-focused, and home conversations remain in Malay. These theories help us not only understand what is happening and why it's happening, they offer a structured explanation of the gap between potential and performance. Moving on to the next slide. In Malaysia's education system, English is assessed heavily but used functionally very little. The student is taught English grammar and vocabulary, yet rarely asked to use it in real-life context. Her home environment, though supportive, lacks the intentional use of English. Watching cartoons in English helps with listening skills, but doesn't translate at all to speak or write, benefiting the proficiency. There's also a social, emotional component. This learner often reports feeling embarrassed when speaking English in front of her peers. Peer ridicule or correction has discouraged her, raising her affective filter and lowering her motivation. Furthermore, there's a strong hierarchy of language value in her context. Malay dominates informal spaces, and English is viewed as academic, creating a mental divide that hampers real use. Rather than seeing translanguaging as an asset, schools often discourage it. These limit the natural strategies bilingual use to make sense of the language. Critically speaking, we must question whether our curriculum, teacher training, and school environment truly support bilingual learners, or if we merely measuring their failures without supporting their development. Moving on to the next slide. Let's now look at a SWOT analysis of her language learning environment. The first one is strength. The first one, early exposure to English through digital media. When a student is exposed to digital media in the early stage, it does actually helps, because when we look at the YouTube or TikTok, sometimes where if the FYP is in English fully, the students or the children will actually benefit from that, because they will start to learn and they will start to follow how the videos are speak, and they will try their best to try something new. The next one is access to English books at home. The students are exposed to the English books at home, and sometimes she interact with her family in English, and it does actually helps. Although it is a smaller progress, but it does something new, and it does benefit the student itself. Sometimes it will increase or boost her confidence in starting to speak English at a new place, and she will start to speak in English in front of her peers without being judged. And the last one, strong first language foundation supports cognitive flexibility, because sometimes although she learns Malay as a first language, it does actually help her to memorize or understand that language learning is something similarly to the second language learning. We need to understand the structures, we need to understand about the verb, vocabulary, and we can construct a simple sentence and a full complex sentence. The weaknesses. Limited real-world English interactions. When her friends start to judge her speaking in English, it does demotivate her, because she will fear that English is something not normal or not suits her. She will try to speak in her own language, which is the Malay language, and she will just ignore the second language learning. The next one is high anxiety and low self-confidence. As I stated before, when someone judges us, we will critically, or we will start to demotivate ourselves. We are not capable of this, we are not born to learn this, and it does not help us to achieve our high potential. And the last one, lack of corrective feedback or structured output practice. When teachers in school try to teach students not based on the exam itself, they teach sincerely to make the students understand the language better. Actually, they will provide a corrective feedback, or when the students is improving in any part of or any section, they will write something and they will just use word of encouragement like good job, you are improving in this, good job, you are improving in this, thank you for the improvement. And it does actually benefit the students, because they are intentionally happy when they hear something good about them. The next one, the opportunities. Digital tools like Duolingo or English apps can be leveraged. When the government implied English apps in the students' mind, it does actually encourage or influence them to use English more often, because it is something normal and it's something not something new. They will try and they will start to use it daily, and throughout the process they are going to speak fluently in English. The second one, parental involvement in English storytelling or reading. For example, when a parent start to read English books before their child sleeps, the students actually can absorb and imitate something from the stories. They will often hear that, and sometimes they will start to memorize. They will start to learn how to construct a structured, because we know that storybooks is something as they use a simple sentences. And when the kids start to learn that, it does help them to learn something smaller, but it will make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and they start to construct a perfect sentence. The last one, implementation of new pedagogies such as role play or translanguaging. We know that the kids nowadays used to use digital media such as television to watch the cartoons or the movies they like the most. For example, Disney Moana. When they watch that movies, the teachers can start to ask them to act, to make a role play session, which is they start to act like their most favorite characters and start to use the dialogue or start to act like their most favorite characters and at their most favorite scene. They can start to use English at the very beginning place, and they can use it daily. And the last one, threats. Peer ridicule or social shaming during English use. We know that when we acquire a new knowledge, it's actually a new process. Sometimes we start to learn it at a very early age. It does actually help us. But sometimes there are people who learn at a very late time. And when they started to learn, the social or the community starts to mock them because of their fault at learning English. And it does actually demotivate them. Standardized assessment discourages creative output. When we often to follow a standardized assessment, it does not help at all. When we use a casual, like a social interaction, there's a people actually benefit from them. We know that there are three learners, which is the auditory learners, visual learners, or kinesthetic learners. And maybe the kinesthetic learners prefer social interaction the most, because we all know that they need to move, they need to use movement in their learning process. And the last one, teacher over-focus on exam performance reduces learner-centered support. Learning is not about exam at all. When we improve ourselves, it's actually a learning process. Sometimes there's a teacher who focuses on the marks itself, and they think that the marks reflects on the quality of that student. It does actually wrong at all. There's a student depends on the context. The students depends on the situation in order to make sure that they can speak at their own space. For example, Last night, students is unable to sleep, and today it will affect how they speak, how they think, because they are not having a good rest last night. And it depends on the individual actually. And on he'll the next day he have a good sleep so that he can speak a good time in a good way, because of he can think normally and he can think using the correct way. And this analysis highlights the need for systematic change from teacher to strategies to parental practices. The next one. Now let's translate our insight into action. For the first one, at home, parents should use simple English during daily routine. Pass me the spoon. Where's your bag? Instead of using the first language, because we can encourage our own child to speak in a better way. And watching English cartoons or shows with subtitles and pause to explain vocabulary can help them to acquire or learn a new words every day. The parents should make a checklist every day. What words their child are learning today, and when they achieve a certain point, the parents should give or rewards them with their most favorite dish, or give them a good rewards. And storybook reading before bed, followed by open-ended English questions like what happened next, can most help them to acquire something new before they sleep. In school, include role-play tasks where children act out real-life situations like ordering food. Encourage pair discussions with sentence structures. This weekend, students. For examples, this weekend, students. You need to continue with your own version. And please pass me to I marks before the class ended. It does actually will help the students. Besides that, introduce grammar contrast activities. Compare Malay sentence structure with English, using the phonic drills with focus on the challenging sounds. Also provide structured scaffolding. Begin with the guided practice, then gradually remove support as the confidence grows. Teacher also need to celebrate small wins, whether that's using a full sentence or pronouncing a tricky word. The goal is move from correction-based teaching to confidence-based growth, because we all know that teachers is playing the main role in teaching our own children. The next one. This case shows us that language acquisition isn't just an academic. It is emotional, cultural, and social. Our learner isn't falling because of lack of ability. She's stuck because her environment isn't providing the tools and support she needs. The theories help us to diagnose the problem, and the practice helps us to solve it. Moving forward, educators must embrace translanguaging as a strength and prioritize low anxiety learning environment, combining input and output strategies to reinforce learning. If we do so, learners like her will not only learn English, they will thrive in it. And last but not least, conclusion and questions. In conclusion, bilingualism is a bridge, not a barrier. It enriches cognitive and communicative potential, but it also requires intentional scaffolding, cultural sensitivity, and strategic practice to be fully realized. This case is a call to action for teachers, parents, and policymakers to reimagine how we teach English, not just a subject, but as a living, a breathing language. Thank you for your listening, and I now be happy to take any questions or hear your thoughts. Thank you.